it's got a connection to YouTube, just black still. There it goes. Wow, that took a really long time. All right. All right. So we are now live on YouTube and live on Riverside. So we've got, should have chat on Riverside and also chat on YouTube ready to go.
Hey everyone, it's Andrew Brown, and we are getting ready here for the GitOps Minicamp 2024. And I'm hearing myself twice here. I'm watching the live stream as well to boost the views. But yeah, if you are here, talk in the chat. Would love to hear who is here for the live stream, and also we'll just give a few minutes for people to show up. I know Derek has some slides prepared, and so the purpose of this week is we're going to make sure that everyone is, it's pre-week, right? Week 0, we're going to make sure everybody's comfortable with what's going to be happening for the scope of the boot camp. And then after that, like my boot camps, we're going to try to follow that format of talking about the project and scoping it out. So we're going to be doing some technical architectural diagram. I'm going to be grilling Derek for as much information as possible so that we're all on the same page and we know what we're going to be building out in the next week, okay? So we'll just wait a moment here for people to join. And yeah, tell me where you're coming from. I'd love to know, where you are. I'm up in Canada in a part that nobody's interested in called Scriber, Ontario. I believe, Derek, you're in Chicago. Are you in downtown Chicago? Or
I'm in Chicago. I'd say if you're from Chicago, I'm not downtown. But if you're not from Chicago, I would say you'd probably think I'm downtown. So yeah.
Cool.
I've got big buildings and stuff around for sure. All right.
Well, and my main question for you, Derek, is do you like deep dish pizza?
No, it's actually, I mean, I guess like twice a year, it's fine. But overall, tavern style, nice, crispy, and small, and doesn't ruin your entire week after you eat it is probably the best route to go. But when your parents are in town, deep dish it is.
And I'm seeing we got some people on the West Coast here and in Canada. So thanks for joining us so early. I don't know what time it would be. If it's 1 here, it's probably like 10, 11. So hopefully this will be a fun thing to wake up here. We'll give it just a few more minutes. And oh, there we go. We got the slides. So everyone, welcome to the
GitOps. Something out.
The GitOps mini bootcamp, and I'll let Derek get the slides here. I'll stop talking, and I'll listen. Okay.
Oh no, you're good. Are we ready? It is 12:01, so we probably ought to kick this off. All right. Welcome, everybody. It looks like we're still getting some people trickling in, but this will be recorded. I'll talk slow through the intro boring stuff so that once the meat starts, you'll be ready to go. So this is the GitOps minicamp. It's technically GitOps with Terraform and AWS minicamp, but honestly, what you're going to learn here is going to translate to almost anything you want to deploy. We're going to be covering a lot about how real companies out there are deploying their workloads. Now, a little bit about me and why I might be relatively experienced enough to explain this type of thing. So I've been teaching Terraform for years. A lot of you may have seen me back in Linux Academy in like 2016, 2017 when they still existed. So I've been around for a while teaching this stuff. I've seen Terraform evolve from basically a weird version of YAML all the way to the very powerful thing that it is today with loops and all sorts of extra
Derek,
programming concepts.
was
Yep.
Terraform originally written in Ruby? I almost feel like it was for some reason.
I've never heard that. I think it started with Go.
Maybe I'm thinking of Chef.
Yes, Ruby I think was Chef if I remember correctly. Yeah. So yeah, pretty much Mitchell Hashimoto has always been a Golang guy as far as I know. He's been doing it for a really long time. So yeah, after that I've worked at a a Terraform automation and collaboration software company. Many of
So,
you may have
sorry,
seen that
wait, Derek, you
experience.
worked at Taco Bell?
Oh, dude, I wish. Oh man, it would have been a lot easier than building pipelines all day and seeing this stuff being built for companies and stuff like that. So that gave me a lot of insight into how people are deploying Terraform workloads in the real world. So anyway, I talked to Andrew one day and he talked me into cranking this thing out. He said, I've created this awesome Terraform intro thing. And honestly, a lot of people don't quite get how to deploy Terraform without using their terminal. Maybe we should do something a little more interesting. So I started cranking out some information, started hammering some stuff out. For the most part, Andrew bailed on me to go and play in the AI bootcamp, which is coming up very soon. I'm super excited about that while I sat here in GitHub Actions and fought its absolute nightmare of a syntax and got some pretty cool stuff kicked out, which is what everyone here is going to be building. Now, a couple differences, which we'll get to here in a second, but a couple differences between some of the boot camps Andrew's done and what I'll be doing is you are going to be working probably a little bit more on your own with mine. So we'll take a look here. So we've got a GitOps mini camp. Now, I use the word boot camp because honestly, it rates well on the internet. But this is more of a mini camp. You're going to be doing more of the work. This is not like a course. This is a project. This is something that you're going to be building yourself. Now, you're going to be challenged. I'm not going to walk through this thing line by line. And there's no single right answer necessarily. You might take a different approach than someone else in the camp or even me. What we're here to check is to make sure that the outcome works and that you can defend that outcome. So depending on how you deploy a thing, you may actually take a completely different route, but as long as the resources are deployed securely, not too worried about it. We're here to teach you patterns, methods, and troubleshooting. We're here to help you if you encounter an issue. We're here to help you learn how to ask for help. We're here to teach you some of the patterns you're going to see in the real world to deploy resources correctly and reliably. Once again, not a line-by-line code walkthrough. We are going to be here to help, so your money's not just going towards this fancy little badge. We are actually going to be giving you hands-on help when you need it. And once again, this is Derek Bootcamp, not an Andrew Bootcamp. Andrew wanted to make sure we covered that. It's going to be a little different. You're going to be working a little bit harder on your own.
Oh,
It's
sure.
not
So
going to be... Go ahead.
I'll chime in there. So,
Yep.
folks, when I do the boot camps, I'll record every single video so that, worst case, you'll have to go through it. My approach is that I want to show you everything, but I will throw wrenches in there so that you have that stuff to work around. Derek is going to be providing more looser instructions, and then you will work to that goal. The way we're going to support you is if you're in the Discord, we have forums, just like in our other boot camps. And there, if you have inquiries, you can ask questions and help drive you to the end here. But we're hoping that, you will find that path yourself, and it's a different format, and we're excited to see how this works. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that point.
Yep. Yeah, that's basically it. You're going to be doing a lot of work here, at least figuring out and getting through problems. I might say, hey, look, you might need to create a custom action that needs to hit the GitHub IPA. Apparently I need a drink. API here. And that might solve this problem. That's the kind of information I'm going to be giving you. Or here is some documentation that's going to help you configure OIDC to properly authenticate your pipeline, things like that. Now let's talk a little bit about some very important things here, and that is security for your code and wallet, because we do expect you to know AWS, GitHub, and Terraform, but I do want to give you some warnings and caveats and things like that to start. One thing, obviously, keep your repo private while you're experimenting. Let's just be safe here. If you accidentally commit a key, that's going to keep things safer.
Yeah, and
While
so again, just
Yep.
chiming in here that for my boot camps, I'll always have them public because I want to see your work, and for you to do that, just understand that for this one, it's going to be private, as that's Derek's preference here. Okay.
Yeah, and you can set it public to make it easier to share. You don't necessarily have to add me as a collaborator to see it. This is totally up to you. Just make sure before you share it with me that you have, validated that there are no exposed keys or anything like that. All right, now we're going to be using GitHub code spaces, which you should see the setup for within the course, which we'll go through that in just a little bit. Code spaces are run on GitHub's infrastructure, so they are more secure, more than likely, than running, your own VS Code that has to be authenticated to GitHub. However, it's still a computer on the internet. Don't ever consider it to be safe, so don't leave a bunch of keys around, stuff like that. Once again, keys committed to your GitHub. I'm going to mention this like a million times. They can be compromised in literal minutes. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes hours, but take it from me, when I first started learning AWS, who lost about $2,000 that I had to go beg AWS to refund due to a leaked key.
Oh, just so you know, I recently had an overbilling with AWS with SageMaker Canvas. Was like $400, and I went and asked AWS. They gave me the money back. So just understand, if you do make a mistake, that there is an opportunity that you can get that money back. But again, you are responsible for your own spend. We're going to give you best recommendations so you can avoid that spend. But if you have AWS, make sure you have a billing account set up. In the scope of this project, the resources we are spinning up are basically in the free tier. So you should be okay. But again, if you can't handle any spend whatsoever, like you can't handle pennies, then make sure that you put in that billing alarm and other things. We don't have in the prereq here, but I have it in my materials, and you can put that together. Okay.
Yep. And just an aside here, if you do go over like $4 and you want to argue with AWS about $4, don't waste your free pass. Wait until you make a real mistake before you start asking AWS for money back.
Oh, sorry. Again, if people can't handle spend, and you do have unexpected spend, make sure you do it before the end of the month, before they invoice you, because they're going to be a lot more flexible to provide that money back to you. But yeah, if you do make a mistake and you try to make the same mistake, they're unlikely to give you the money back. If it's completely different and it's been a long period, then they're pretty good about it. So sorry.
Awesome. All good. All right. GitHub secrets are there for a reason. Use that when you can. Do not, again, throw keys around. Don't add them just in a document somewhere to copy and paste places. Make sure that you don't put keys anywhere. All right, cool. Let's go through some tips for success. Use the docs. One of the things
Derek, just before you proceed, let's say someone doesn't want to use AWS. Could they use a different one, or do you want them to stick to AWS?
Let's stick to AWS. For the premium folks, if you want to mix things up a little bit, that might be okay. We'll discuss that in the private channel. I do like to give people the option to think outside the box if they're more familiar with something else. But the code that I'm going to give you to modify is going to be AWS, so we're going to stick with AWS. All right, so one of the things, if you've ever watched any of my Terraform courses or any of my other courses, is I am huge on documentation. I'm going to explain everything I do and provide a source. So anytime I'm helping you with anything, anytime that we're doing something, it's not like, oh, because some guy on Stack Overflow said this is great and the right way to do it. We're going to go and find out where it is in the docs and why that works the way it does. Do not source things just from random people without verifying it. Now, another thing, solve small problems with short feedback loops. We are dealing with pipelines here, and that becomes a big pain when every time you need to test something, you have to commit a PR, you have to go and make a comment, or you have to wait for a plan, or you have to wait for some other, thing to process. This can take a long time and really extend the feedback loop, which can make a very small problem take a lot longer. So feel free to, create a testing environment that has fewer things, or to comment out like 90% of the script if you need to just test one thing. Make sure you're always thinking small. And to further iterate on that point, iterate, iterate, iterate. Again, start small and add things in iterations. If you just try to copy and paste like 400 things in one pipeline and then run it all at once, and you find out there's an error, you're going to have to dig through a lot more code. And if you want our assistance, we don't want to see the rest of that code. We want to see exactly where the problem happened and why it happened, and show us, hey, look, I tried this. This is in this one little, blurb, this one little step, or this one job, and this is where the problem started. Don't ask us to go through tons of logs to find out where your problem might be. Once again, use comments. Comment your code all over the place, but also comment out your code when you're trying to iterate on something or test something small. It really helps. Break your code into individual files if you need to, or individual steps. This, once again, will help you shorten the feedback loop and really dive into where the problem is occurring. Now, let's talk about AI. Andrew Brown might have some things to say here.
It's awesome. Just use AI for everything. Just use everything, and no, it is really good. I'm loving it. That's what you're gonna say, right, Twitter, Derek? Yeah. Just copy paste, generate it out, tell the description.
Yeah, I read my note cards just like you said.
But I actually could add a bit here. So, as much as I love AI, there are some deficits, and specifically with Terraform, like for instance, newer services, it's not going to have the knowledge to know how to build that stuff. And sometimes it has conflicting information. So like if we were to use Google Cloud Platform right now, I can tell you right now that it would give you conflicting information and setup, and it will work you in circles. So, it's only as smart as the data that's out there and it can make sense of. And so you can use Terraform, or you can use ChatGPT, Claude Sonnet, Mistral, Gemini, Llama, whatever those AI powered systems you want, but just or even a developer like Amazon Developer Q or Cursors.io, but understand that there are limits to it. And you should have the domain knowledge. And, if I was to test you, you have to make sure you know it, okay? But use it if you need it, okay?
Andrew, overall, the corpus for these LLMs, are you still seeing 2 years, or some of them newer, some of them older? How is that looking?
Well, again, it varies per platform, but I think that we just need more specialized AI-powered systems. So example would be something like Vercel's V0, which has been given knowledge about how to work with SHADs, CN, Tailwind, things like that. We don't have one for CloudFormation. Like even though AWS has Amazon Developer Q, I was trying to ask it to make an Amazon Bedrock agent yesterday. Didn't know what the CloudFormation was. So in the future, I'm sure, but right now, understand that especially with APIs that change rapidly, it's going to get confused and give you older stuff. And so you have to know the history of a product to make those decisions. So always try to go to, you can use it, but make sure you can verify that source somewhere in the references and stuff and make sure that it's correct. Sorry.
No, all good. That's exactly what I was hoping for. And to lead from that, one of the grading criteria that I didn't think I was going to mention anyone, but I think I will right now for everybody watching. Anybody who doesn't watch this might miss this. If you use an old version of one of the GitHub Actions, I'm going to know it. So ChatGPT, etc., is going to say, all right, use the checkout V2. Well, checkout I think has V4 now, if I remember correctly. So that's a layup for me. That means I'm going to look in there. I'm going to know you just regurgitated this right out of ChatGPT, and I'm going to mark it. So if you want that cool badge to share with everybody, make sure you are verifying everything you find in AI in the documentation and updating those actions properly. Because again, it's a layup for me. It's so easy to grade and see that all you did was just kick something out of ChatGPT. All right, so to go back to a positive note, we again are here to help. In the Discord, we have public channels, private channels, but also forums set up. I'm right now only sharing this window, so we'll go through the Discord in a bit and cover that. I don't want to flip things
sorry,
around.
and we'll just talk about Discord just for a second. There is that understand that in Discord it's very hard to see DMs. So if somebody's DMing me, just understand that I have to periodically check, and I do apologize if I'm not super responsive. I do check, but unfortunately it's just the way the system is built. But if you write things in the forum, that's great. You don't need to @sign me because I'll be checking on the regular. So just write it in somewhere, and we'll periodically check in, and that's good. Unless you have a super emergency, then you can @sign me. Okay.
Yeah. So just to remind everybody in a more Derek oriented way, we have over 1,000 people in this thing. If you all try to DM us for the same question, that's helping no one. The point of this boot camp is that you're all going to be able to help each other. And anytime you ask a question, there's a great chance that someone else also wants to ask that question. So that's what these channels are for. And I'm going to be making an effort to answer questions in the channels before anything else. Now, if you have a financial or billing question, or you can't access materials or something like that, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'll be happy to help you and get you on the right path. Now, the fun part, codes of conduct. This is a big one here. No unsolicited or tagging or direct messages to other users. I know it sounds very innocent, but if someone is offering to help you and provide their time to help you get through a problem, that does not give you the right to tag them or direct message them just because they were nice enough for 10 minutes. We all have jobs. And to be perfectly honest, DevOps help is expensive. So do please keep that in mind and respect people's time.
Sorry.
Things.
So yeah, again, just gonna add a bit there onto the DMs. Yep. Again, this is just not. There's a lot of people in here, and some people are more introverted than others, and they might not be comfortable with direct messages. So I would just recommend that we're all here to collaborate and work together. Let's use those public spaces together to work there. Okay.
Yep. Perfect. All right. This is a fun one. So before asking a question, show proof of effort. So what exactly does that mean? Really, we want to see what you've tried, why it didn't work. Do you have logs? Do you have any other reason? Just saying, hey, this doesn't work, and posting your code, we don't have time to go through everybody's code every single time. Now, if you say, all right, here is the step that is causing a problem. Here's the logs I'm getting. Maybe it is failure to authenticate to AWS, for instance. Here's what I've tried. I've created this role, or I've added these keys to secrets, or whatever. Now I'm having an issue. So with that amount of information, we can probably help much quicker, and we're more willing to help. And that goes for everyone. I think everyone is more willing to help when they have all the information they need.
Let's take a look at some of those points. I think I might have some under there that are very specific, but again, there we go. This will save us a bit of time here. But if you've been to one of my boot camps, you know that I like people to show proof of effort, and it just makes it a lot easier for us to help you, right? We'll still help you if it's wrong, but it'll make it a lot faster, and it's appreciated. So try to Google it, see what solutions are out there, try to apply. If the solutions didn't work, that's okay. If you try to think about what the problem is and try to take a guess, take screenshots. Make sure when you take screenshots that they're screenshots and not with your phone. So if you don't know how to take a screenshot, learn that. That's okay. There might be one more point there, Derek, if we bring it in there. Code blocks, right? So if you're going to bring code in, just make sure that you learn how to do the markdown stuff. But again, if you make a few mistakes, that's totally fine. We'll help correct that. We'll be more firmer as if we have more questions. But again, if you've been to one of my boot camps, you know it already. You're in good shape. You're not going to run afoul here. Okay, sorry.
Yep. All right, that's obviously a big one. People have different cultures and are awake at different times, and honestly, just be respectful no matter what. If anybody starts arguing, it's a pretty easy call just to use the old band hammer there and knock you out. We don't have time to mediate, and figure out who is right, who is wrong. It's just there's no reason to argue over code. I know Stack Overflow might lead you to a different conclusion about that, but there's just no reason to get mad at somebody else over code. All right, and just to remind you, we might provide a warning, and if it's something kind of chill, I'll probably message you offline and just kind of get to the bottom of it. But overall, if you're just being especially egregious, you're out. All right, so this is a fun part.
Sorry, Darren. Let's just go back for 2 seconds there. I just want to touch on that last point. That last point there. Sorry.
Oops.
Gotta go backwards.
Go back.
But again, for the codes of conduct, I have a full one for my boot camp. Derek's are a bit later, but just understand that whatever rules apply to that one are the same here. And sometimes correction needs to be required. You might not be doing anything really bad, but if something is suspect, or we think it might make people feel uncomfortable, or is a miscommunication, because remember, we all from different cultures with different backgrounds, and so these vary. We'll ask you to say, hey, we would like you to take this action to correct it, or whatever. Just comply and understand that it's not your fault. It's just that things are different, and I'm asking you to cooperate for us there, okay? But if you argue, unfortunately, we might have to take more extreme action, like kicking or banning, because we need everyone to work together, okay?
Yep. All right, so yeah, Andrew got me to make sure I put this in here because it is pretty true. Now, I have built, for the most part, I've built most of the pipeline that we're going to be building. I haven't quite knocked out everything because honestly, these things are moving targets. They are living organisms, basically. Stuff gets updated, stuff changes, requirements change. So I'm going to be building a lot of this as we go. And honestly, in the live call next week, we may be talking and I'll just say, you know what, actually, we're going to do this thing a different way. We might hash something out. I might learn something in Discord that I didn't know was even possible. So that's possible. Like, we're all going to be building this stuff together, which is why this is more of a boot camp and not a course. This is like a real work project. There's going to be real requirements. And if you don't hit those requirements, there will be real consequences, like a comment. That's about it.
You'll be fired.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to fire people.
You're all fired.
I'm putting everybody on a
pay.
PIP starting now. So we're going to be architecting. And again, I've made most of this already, but there might be some massive changes. Who knows? All of these kind of line up with that. Change for failure.
I'll talk.
Let's dive into
this. Is more my jam here. So I'll take over here. But yeah, it's the phrase that I always use. We're building the bridge as we cross it. And so understand, scope can change, because in a real project, you might find that we've done too much work, and we need to scale back, or we have time for more, right? Or we might deviate because I know there are some parts that Derek is still figuring out, like OPA and things like that. We might decide that there is a new emerging product that is better, or things like that. I want to make point, the value of boot camps is the troubleshooting. So the changes that occur are really great, because if you have a video tutorial online, you can watch it end to end, and there aren't any hard bits that you need to work through. You're missing out on the best part, which is the problem solving. That's why people want to hire you. And so I'm hoping that we do have problems. I'm hoping Derek has problems, and we have to deviate a bit, because that's going to be a value to you. But even the material itself is really great. Sorry, let's continue.
No, it's good. Trust me, while creating courses, that are end-to-end, I encounter a lot of problems that I end up, just covering, no problem. That struggle is where the real learning happens. All right, so we're going to have some after class Q&A to help. We're not done yet. This is just the done of the end of the boring part. And we're going to hop into Discord and be available for anybody who has questions.
Sorry, yeah, and I'll just, people who've been
Yep.
to my previous boot camps, we're following the same format. After we end this live stream, we'll immediately go into the Discord. There's a channel called After Class Q&A, and you can take the stage, and we can just talk about what do you think about the content. If you have any clarifying questions, we can just have a good time. And I want to point out that this live stream here, we allot 2 hours, but it doesn't have to go for 2 hours. If we accomplish what we want to in an hour or an hour and 30 minutes, we'll stop there and we'll proceed over here. Same thing with after class Q&A. We're going to allot 30 minutes, but if there aren't a lot of questions, we'll end early and we can all enjoy our Saturday and get to it so you can get through that prerequisite content. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say here about the after class Q&A.
Perfect. All right, let's talk a little bit about grading, which I have kind of covered already. So GitHub repo, you're going to need to name it. I think I actually said 2024, just GitOps 2024, actually. It's in the course materials, so just check that. So the GitHub repo, if you've paid for the grading, that's anybody who's paid the $49 or $99 plans. You can set it to private. You can also set it to public. It doesn't have to be either. But private is just going to be easier to make sure you don't leak anything or whatever. Totally fine. But if you do, you need to add more than certified, which is me, to access that repo so that I can grade it. You'll need to create some technical documentation. I need to know how you're creating this thing, your thought process. Are there variables that are going to need to be filled? Are there secrets that need to be created? Things like that. We're going to dive more in as we, release the specs for this boot camp and release all the challenges you'll need to overcome.
And just to talk on that README part, the parts that are valuable are where you run into issues, right? So think of it like a hypothesis. You're going, I think that I can do it this way. So you write out that hypothesis, and then you document your process of exploring the technical challenges of it, right? Okay, I think there's 3 ways I can do it. I probably should do it this way. What was the outcome? What is my technical certainty of that this is correct? And that's your valuable thing, because if you have these documents, imagine you're working a team, and let's say tomorrow you don't die. I don't like to give that scenario, but you have won the lottery and you've left the job, and the next person needs to pick up your work. They want to know how you did it, and they want to carry on the domain knowledge, because the stuff that you do, that stuff's the most valuable to a team, right? Companies literally, like AWS, has these large services, they literally have to shut some of them down because the key people, the domain knowledge, leave, and so that's where the value is. You're writing the value when you do that, so just consider that, okay?
Absolutely. And another thing too is keep track of your sources, because again, if you do leave the company and you use some wild Stack Overflow comment from 10 years ago, there's a good chance your replacement's not going to find that or have any clue how you solved a problem that you solved or why you made a decision you made. So that helps a lot.
And what's really interesting about that is sometimes I will even I'll screenshot, or I will save the HTML, or I'll take the excerpt, because sometimes these references vanish, right? So,
Absolutely.
but you have to consider that. You have to make that technical judgment when you're working with stuff. Sorry.
Yep. No, you're good. Yeah, so expected GitHub PRs. Basically, we're not going to go too crazy here, but we do want to make sure that you understand, why a PR might be created, and have a PR strategy that kind of fits to a project like this. Like, are you adding a feature? Are you creating something completely new? Are you modifying your GitHub Actions YAML file? Or, make sure you also have protections for these PRs. Make sure that the necessary checks are created, etc. So you should see all expected code into repository. Obviously, that's pretty clear. That needs to be there. Should be able to observe the GitHub Actions pipeline. Definitely when you submit this, make sure that you've run the pipeline already. I'm just going to go in and look at the logs and make sure that everything looks good. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to dive a lot deeper into what this looks like over the next few days as I start fleshing out all of your challenges and what you're going to need to overcome. And by the next week, we're going to make sure that all of this is ironclad. All right, Andrew, what do you think next? Should we go to the Discord? Should we go to the course page? What do you think?
I was hoping we play Stardew Valley, but maybe we should get to work here. So, I think that what's going to really help people solidify or get a good foundation of what we're building is maybe we should go do some architectural diagramming. I love doing that.
Yeah,
so maybe maybe I can share my screen. We'll hop over to our Lucid charts. And, I'm going to say this to folks out here. You can do this too if you have your own Lucid chart account or Draw.io. It's not a hard requirement for grading. In my boot camps, I make you architectural diagram and I check for these. Derek is not that concerned about it, but, maybe that looks like bonus points if you go do that. So, it doesn't hurt to do it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just give me a moment here. So we'll go to screen. And I'm going to choose my entire screen and use the correct screen, which is over here. Good. There we go. If I chose the wrong screen, it'd be like infinite window, and then it's like I would. That'd be really interesting. But anyway, we got Lucid charts open here. I've named this 2024 GitOps Minicamp Architectural Diagram, and I'll share the links at some point here, maybe in the Discord. This is looking at the comments here. And by the way, I've been reading the comments the entire time. So document makes a 2-hour project. 2 days long. Yes, but you got to think about the time it saves down the road. Or, could you use Gen AI to write docs? Maybe. I'm still trying to figure out that myself, but I think if you wrote a good prompt document, like this is how I'd like to write my documentation, you could probably use it as a springboard, but I haven't tried that yet. Maybe in the Gen AI bootcamp we'll do that. But let's get this going here. And so, Derek, what at the most highest level, the simplest level, what are we building? Are we building a house? What are we building?
Yeah, an infrastructure house. No, what we're doing is we're building a GitHub Actions pipeline that will deploy Terraform code resources to AWS, essentially. So we're going to keep it very simple with the Terraform part because, honestly, this is not a Terraform minicamp. This is a GitOps minicamp. We're more focused on how to deploy the Terraform more than the Terraform code itself. That being said, you may need to make some corrections to the Terraform code that I provide you just to ensure that there are no mistakes and that it passes all tests. Okay. So keep that in mind.
And for those who are out there, I don't know what this project is, so I'm trying to, imagine you're working with another technical person, you're trying to extract the stuff in their head so that you are both on the same page. So what did I hear from Derek? I heard GitHub Actions. Literally, I'll tell you, I'm doing that check, looking for what he's saying. GitHub Actions. I heard pipeline. I heard Terraform code. And so right away, what am I thinking? I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to drag this out. I heard GitHub Actions, so I put GitHub Actions up here. And then I know that there's Terraform, so we'll go ahead and drag that out next over here. So let's say TF code. And let's go first take a look at GitHub Actions. I wonder what GitHub Actions is. Does anyone have a course on it? I don't think so. But I'm just making a joke. But here's the icon for GitHub Actions. I'm going to take a screenshot of it here. Okay. And I'm not sure if I can just paste it in here like that. Oh, I can. Wow, that was nice.
Wait, Lucidchart doesn't just have GitHub Actions icons?
I don't know. I didn't check. I don't think it does.
They already have them.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna cheat here because sometimes some of these are not there, but we'll have the Terraform logo. Sure. You're gonna tell me it's there too, but I don't think so. And
it also will search online. Pretty sure. Yeah. That's okay.
I don't know how to do that. And I'm old. I don't want to learn new things.
Love it.
And yeah, so it's SVG. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll bite. How do I get the Terraform logo?
You gotta go in under shapes. You might have to add custom stuff. My Lucid chart has
Okay.
been set up for a long time.
I don't
So.
I don't think it had. I know this one doesn't have it, so I don't think it has this one. But the trick with it, because I just saw this as an SVG, and SVGs are a headache. But just give me a second here. I'm going to try to bring that Terraform logo. I like my stuff to look nice. That's just me here. And we'll just kind of work through these components. Where are you, Terraform? I am looking on my desktop here for that Terraform icon off screen. Just give me just a moment. And we'll go here. I found it. And I'm going to drag it on in here. Fingers crossed. SVGs are really hard. Oh, it worked. Has a big border. I'm going to just live with that. Okay. So we have our, you see like that big ugly border there. I'm not opening up Illustrator here today, but we have Terraform Cloud and GitHub Actions. So, Derek, what is GitHub Actions?
GitHub Actions is basically just a new Jenkins. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
actually, kind of. So it's
well,
a way of chaining together steps through some sort of deployment pipeline. So in a deployment pipeline, you might need to test the code, or you need to check out the code from your repository. You then need to test the code, maybe running an application like tflint, for instance. You then might need to run a plan on that Terraform code to make sure that
but I
it's
guess
right.
the highest level, what is it? It's just a CI/CD pipeline?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. What kind of popular CI/CD tools are there out there for DevOps besides Jenkins and GitHub Actions?
There's GitLab
Or is that
CI.
the two?
Well, there's GitLab CI, which
Okay.
is just like GitHub Actions. A lot of people have
Is it
kicked them
good
out.
or?
It's fine. Yeah, it's just as good, I'd say. It's
Okay.
perfectly fine to use. And then you've got a lot of the tacos that I mentioned before, the Terraform automation tools. You've got Terraform Cloud, you've got Spacelift, you've got M0, TerraTeam. God, I can't even think of how many more there are out there.
Okay.
But those are several of them.
Sure. And well, AWS has their own AWS code pipeline. So you were mentioning tacos, not the food, the thing, but then there's like these generic CI/CD tools, right? And then tacos are CI/CD tools specialized specifically for Terraform to do GitOps. Would that be a fair description? Is that
So
a good
those
rough
types of tools
description
will
of the two?
probably simplify a lot of what we're doing, but not everybody is going to be on board. You know, a lot of startups or even big companies that are already paying tons of engineers, they may not want to pay for one of these tools on top of a bunch of DevOps engineers. So, you know, a lot of times building it from scratch out of GitHub Actions is going to be better for the company, but also it's going to be good for you to be able to understand how this stuff works under the hood. Now, if you understand GitHub Actions, you're going to be able to move to any of these platforms easily.
So Derek, like if we're using GitHub Actions, could it be considered a taco, or only those specialized tools like M0 and Spacelift are tacos?
No, I'd say
We're doing
it is
taco-like things, but it's not a taco?
It's totally a taco. I mean, it's
We are
software
tacoing,
that
or
you
we're not
built.
tacoing?
Oh, we're tacoing. We're tacoing hard.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, okay, so I'm going to bring this up here, and I just want people to know. Again, they just haven't heard this term. So it's Terraform, automation. You got to help me out here, Derek. I'm bad with initialisms. Automation,
And
orchestration.
collaboration software.
This is Derek. He makes you do it yourself. System?
Wait,
No, really,
Terraform
what is it?
automation
It's
and
Terraform
collaboration
automation.
software.
Okay, and collaboration. Nobody point out my spelling mistakes, or do, I don't care. And so again, just reading the chat here and just making sure people are comfortable with YAML and what they like to use. But let's bring this back up to here. So could on our resume, could we say that we built a taco?
I would probably lean more towards saying you built a CI/CD pipeline, or you're familiar with infrastructure.
There you have
pipelines.
it. Derek says
Yep.
we've built a full-blown taco.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, so we have GitHub Actions and we have Terraform Cloud, right? So that makes sense. So the idea is that the whole point of this is to deploy infrastructure, right? And so I'm going to grab this over here, bring this over, and I'm going to assume that this is our cloud infrastructure.
Yep.
And I'm going to go here, and we're doing AWS today, I believe, which is okay.
Yeah, we're going to deploy an
I don't know
AWS
if they have the
EC2
AWS
instance.
logo.
Yeah, maybe not actually. I think it's weird on the logo.
I know. Well, you think? Well, they do kind of. So they have this, right? But
Yeah.
not the icon. So
Right.
what we're going to do is we're going to just keep doing this. So it's whatever, you know what I mean? If it works, it works. You know what? I really like the old logo. Let's say Amazon. I like to use the old logo because it irks people. Old logo.
Oh yeah,
was like,
no,
you
we're
know, there's a
breaking
newer logo.
we're
I'm
breaking
like-
their rules. Yeah, they're gonna sue us probably. Send us a cease and desist.
The best way, if you want to get, if you want to show that you're up to date with your architectural diagramming, always use the older logos. Is my recommendation here. But I'm going to go ahead and just find that logo. Do you like? I actually like the old logo. I think it looks cool. But do you like it, Derek, or are you more of the nouveau kind of fella?
I think I'm gonna have to go with a new one. I think the old one does show some class. Though.
Okay.
The old one shows some class. There we go. Nice.
I love the old 3D icons. Okay, so we have these three parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and as far as I understand it, right? So let me think. What's next? Oh, you know what's missing here? We have Terraform, but it doesn't go straight to GitHub Actions. It has something in the middle, like this is where we'd have GitHub, right? So
yeah, the repository. Yep.
Because otherwise,
you
it's
have
not.
your GitHub
If we don't have the repo, then it's not GitOps, right? That's what makes us GitOps is the repo, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't think there's a logo for GitHub. Well, you know what? I think it could be any Git repo. So maybe there's like the Git logo. And we'll drag this here.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and so what makes this GitOps is, let's say Git here, Git repo is the Git repo, right? Without this, we don't have GitOps, at least as far as I understand. So I guess we go here, then here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to get this set up here. If you are using GitHub, GitLab, Code Commit, which doesn't exist anymore, Bitbucket, a hosted one, is it still GitOps?
Absolutely, it's Git.
If you're self-hosting, is it as long as you have Git in the pipeline?
If you're using Git, I mean, I would say Git is kind of the Kleenex of this type of thing. You could certainly use SVN or whatever else crazy thing you want out there. It's more about the process than it is the capital letters.
Okay. So here we have Terraform, Git repo, GitHub Actions, cloud infrastructure, right?
Yep.
So in our Terraform code, like we are deploying, what are we deploying?
We're going to deploy an EC2 instance. We're going to keep it very simple. And I think we'll use some user data to deploy Grafana on that EC2 instance. So you've actually got something to kind of play with after you deploy.
Is there a particular size of EC2 instance we're using?
That actually is going to vary. We're going to take a look at different strategies around that, and we'll use infra cost to help ensure that we stay within reason. So some might be free tiers,
Okay,
some might not be. We can set policies to keep us within our budget.
Do we know like exactly which specific, like is it going to be T3 micro, T4GN? I don't know. This is that Gravitron one.
Well,
What's
T2
your go-to?
micro
Is
is
it gonna be
going. T2 micro is universally free tier. T3, I believe, is only free tier for certain regions, but T2 micro is.
So I think it's free wherever T2 is not available because everything's moving towards T4. So
Okay.
Folks, if you're out there and you don't have free tier account, make a new AWS account and you should get back into free tier. And I believe it's T2 micro or T2 or T3 micro.
Yep.
That we're utilizing. There, if you aren't on free tier and you just want to save money, then you could use the T4G. There might be an N on that micro, and the difference between that, like these ones, This one is that if you see a G in there, that's Gravitron, and it's using AMD. No, not AMD. What's the chipset that's not x86?
Yeah,
ARM. Yeah, it's using ARM, and ARM is really efficient. So,
well, I haven't tested Grafana
yeah,
install on ARM yet, so I don't know for sure that this install works. I'll have to check to make sure that it's not hard coded for x86 infrastructure.
So Derek's saying go use the ARM one.
Yeah, use it.
Derek's saying go use the ARM one.
Great.
And I'm just here to cause trouble, to be honest. But so it sounds like we're going to start with a T2, T3 micro. So why would we have to? Again, you said obviously, like for learning, obviously we're going to use a different size. But let's pretend that it's not for learning. Why would we have to use a larger size? Like, what scenario would that happen?
Well, there's a good chance you'd need to scale up, and there are a lot of ways to change instance based on which environment you're deploying to. So you might have a dev environment that only does T2 micro to make sure it works. Then you might have a prod environment that uses a much larger instance to support much more software, heavier workload, whatever you need to do. Was that what you were asking, or are you?
It looks like G Voden's not on board for the old logo. Well, I would just say Grafana, like, will it run on a T2, T3 micro, or is there like an ideal size? This is like you should ideally run it on a T3 medium.
Grafana should be able to run on a
going under it,
if
or
you need it to. I think I've run it. Yeah,
I've
run it on a Atari. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, T2 micro will run perfectly fine with Grafana. A T2 nano might be a stretch, but T2 micro should work just fine.
Okay. So I guess my next question is, we're gonna run Grafana, right? But how are we gonna install it? Because DevOps, there's more than one way to do it. You can use Ansible, you can use Chef, you can use user data, you can use Cloud Init. How are we going to install Grafana onto the? Are we going to log in and install it manually, or are we going to use ClickOps somehow? Like use a WordPress portal and press a button.
That's all. Yeah, we'll use a user data file. That's all. It'll be pretty straightforward. Again, this is not going to be super focused on the Terraform part of it and the AWS part of it. It's more getting these resources where they need to go and making sure that you are catching all of the weird edge and corner cases based on that infrastructure. So for instance, you might need to be able to change regions dynamically. You're going to need to think about stuff like that.
Is there any other than the EC2 instance, is there anything else? Like, do we need an S3 bucket? Do we need to have a load balancer? Do we need a custom domain? Do we need high-level GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs? Is there any other resources beside the EC2 instance for this pipeline?
No, that's going to be pretty much it in the pipeline itself. Now, your decision on where to store state is going to be very important. We'll probably store it in an S3 bucket and a DynamoDB, and use DynamoDB to manage the versioning of the locks. But I honestly haven't built that out yet for this pipeline, so that's one of the things that's one of the planks in the bridge that I'm building right now. But yeah, most likely we'll do that though before the pipeline itself.
So Derek, you said state. What are we talking about when we're talking about state? Are we
Terraform
talking about
state.
Terraform state?
Yep. So just
and so
let me dive in on that real quick for the state, because keep in mind, if you do deploy these resources to AWS and you did not store your state somewhere static, you can potentially get yourself in trouble and not be able to destroy what you've created. So make sure that you are familiar enough with AWS to go in and destroy and delete any resources you create in case something goes wrong with storing that state. So that's just kind of my little caveat there.
I'm just telling people about my custom cup here.
Nice.
So I have this custom cup here, which just says the 2375 Niners, because Bako and I, we both really like Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And so on the space station, they have a baseball team, right? And they're called the Niners because it's Deep Space Nine, but I don't know. I just noticed I had that cup here. I thought that was pretty cool. So there's obviously a state file. We're gonna drag this out here. And so you think I should know, I made a course on this, and you've made more. You're Mr. Terraform. You've made more than me. So I'm trying to remember, what's the name of the state file?
Terraform.tf state.
Terraform.tf state. Okay.
Yep.
And so this thing, unlike CloudFormation, which will store that somewhere, right? Like you don't even deal with the state file. We have to manage the state file somewhere. And I think you were saying that you wanted it, you ideally do it on like AWS. Is that right?
Yeah, most likely we'll do that just to make it as agnostic as possible. But if I decide to go bigger on maybe OPA or InfraCost or something else, we may kind of gloss over this and let you choose whichever state storage you want. This is part of the bridge we're building. But overall, you're going to see a lot of storage out in S3. And again, you use DynamoDB to manage the locking of that state to prevent multiple people from applying on top of each other.
So my question is it just DynamoDB, or do we also use an S3 bucket? Or
now,
I really
bucket
don't know.
will
I've
store
only
the
done it
state.
once.
DynamoDB stores the locking information.
Okay, and we'll use the clearly up-to-date bucket.
Yes.
That is not the new bucket, people.
That's not the bucket with objects.
You know what? I'm gonna. And I can't get this. I can't get this part out of here either. Oh, there we go. We'll just take that part out. I don't really like the default labels. That is an ugly bucket. I love it. And we'll go here, and this will be S3 bucket. And then the other component here, I think you said, was DynamoDB table.
Yes.
DynamoDB. Do they have a table icon? They do. And so we get the new one here. I'm just going to take that text out there as well. And we'll bring this on down here. People, what do you like of my diagramming? Is it beautiful, ugly? What do you think? Can you give me a rating out of 1 to 10 how much you like my diagramming so far? And so this state file here, it's going to be in the bucket. Like it literally is, like if I draw a line to the bucket, that's where it's going to be.
Yep. That's it.
Okay. And 7 out of 10, that's pretty good. 7 out of 10, I'll take that. But to be fair, it's not the nicest diagram. But I'm sure a lot of people watch me do way too much diagramming here. And I'm not sure how these connect with each other. So like, how does it know to get data into DynamoDB? Is it just something that Terraform's doing under the hood?
Yeah, actually, Terraform's managing pretty much all of it. So whatever you are running a plan, for instance, DynamoDB will get a lock, which basically says nobody else can do anything with this while we're doing this operation. Or like if you're applying something, let's say you're applying some infrastructure that's taking like 10 minutes. You don't want someone else making a PR and merging that and applying another piece of infrastructure that may cause an issue with the infrastructure you're applying. So what happens is DynamoDB has a table entry that says, hey, right now the state's locked. Nobody can touch this. So leave me alone until this is done. Okay.
And again, I'm thinking the thing that probably is taking care of this is the Terraform. I'm not sure if you call it like Terraform runtime or binary or whatever you want to call it, but the Terraform.
There's an API that does it.
Terraform API. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. I've heard of those before. I had my friend over. I was helping him with his website recently, and I told him about API, and I can't remember. It was the funniest thing what he called it, but it was very interesting what he called that he thought the initialism stood for. So the idea is going here into our state management infrastructure. Now, my question is like, it sounds like there is some technical uncertainty in terms of where we're going to store the state. If this doesn't work out or does work out, what are the other options for storing state? Is Terraform Cloud an option that you're considering?
Yeah, and just to be perfectly clear, this all works. It's just what I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be able to cover. I want to make sure we prioritize since we've only got 2 weeks here. But yes, this will work.
Okay.
Terraform Cloud is
Where?
a very easy option that you can use. They have not paid me a bunch of money to say that, which bugs me. But that's just the way it goes. So Terraform Cloud actually has a cloud block within Terraform that will make it very simple to authenticate, but you will need a Terraform API token from cloud. You'll need a cloud token, and you'll need to make sure you store that properly, make sure that's not in your code anywhere, or you might end up with some serious problems.
And because for those who don't know, like I'm dyslexic, and if I do not make diagrams and write docs, I this is the way my brain works. I won't be able to follow things along. So a lot of times, even when I'm on calls, even if it's not a call that is like for building architectural diagrams, I'll literally pull up Lucid charts and start flowing things to help understand relationships and stuff. A little defect of me, but it works out really well. So besides AWS for state management, we have Terraform Cloud. I think there are other options. I'm not saying we're using these, but there's M0, there's Spacelift, and I believe that you used to work at Spacelift, right, Derek? I actually have I think you got me my
Yep.
Spacelift shirt.
Yeah, that sounds
allegedly.
Right.
Is there
Yeah,
any other? Is there any other
Terra
places?
Is another one.
Terra Team.
Yep, Terra Team is another one.
Any other ones?
Probably.
Derek knows them all. He's Mr. Terraform.
Yeah.
So the thing is that one thought I had is like we're using GitHub Actions, right? And so if you're using something like M0, and you correct me, Derek, if I'm wrong, but if you're using something like M0, Spacelift, Terraform Cloud, you don't need GitHub Actions because it takes care of this part and this part, right? And so with GitHub Actions, it's only giving you one part of it, and we still have to do the other part. But the advantage of GitHub Actions is that we get, I would think, we get a lot of flexibility. Is that the case? Like, is that a good reason why? And also, it's very cost effective too.
Each one of those options have different features and feature sets that you may or may not be able to replicate, or sorry, the other way around. GitHub Actions, you can do literally anything. I mean, you can deploy anything. A lot of these tacos actually use GitHub Actions on the background. Not all of them. Do not quote me on that. They might get mad, but some of them actually uses GitHub Actions on the background, on the back end. But essentially, you can do just about anything GitHub Actions with those tacos. They have most of the features you're going to encounter, but occasionally you may need custom behavior. And to do that, you still end up having to go and create something within GitHub Actions to provide that behavior. So knowing GitHub Actions, even with all of these great platforms out there, is still extremely useful.
I like what and Rod gave us a lot of other suggestions. Obviously, local, Azure, console, GCS, HTTP, Kubernetes.
Yep.
When you're using Terraform, maybe they encourage it more to use Terraform Cloud, but like when you use Terraform, it's generally first storing it locally as a state cloud, or sorry, state file. I think I was talking to Derek prior, and I was saying, is there a way we could use the state file locally? But if you are using GitOps, right? This is the server, and it has to know where the state file is. So maybe there's like, is there like could you use GitHub Actions with a local file? Would it be able to pass it through? But I'm just saying, because we're going to use a cloud developer environment, we have to store it remotely. I don't know if my question is kind of a mess there.
I'm trying to get it. So the state file is going to be modified, for anytime you run anything. It needs to be accessed quickly, easily, and needs to be very resilient to any type of issue whatsoever. State files need to be protected at all costs, and that's from a security standpoint and from a availability standpoint.
Sure. But I just mean, like, from a practical standpoint, let's say I'm just learning, I'm just getting started. Can I do GitOps with a local state file, or does it always have to be, like, would it even work? Would it always have to be in a cloud, like a cloud state management solution?
Well, the GitHub Actions, unless you you commit it somewhere static, is an ephemeral pipeline. So if you try to use state within that, it's going to be deleted as soon as you're done with the action, which means that you now lose all history of what you just did. So it's useless.
So in other words, GitHub Actions is like a fish, and it's going to forget, like a goldfish. It's going to forget. So you do need to store it somewhere in the cloud, and it might. Like I just don't know if it could pull from local when people are starting to learn, but it still sounds like best practice to use.
Yeah, you're not going to pull it from the
cloud state manager.
You won't be pulling it from local because it does need to change on the fly. There are ways probably to hack it, but it's too easy to do it the right way versus trying to make it work the wrong way. Now, the HTTP option that was mentioned in chat, that's something you'll see some people do. They'll actually store the state in a custom HTTP server and access it using the methods or the API available to them for that. But overall, your S3 and DynamoDB is the most fundamental and easy option outside of local. Now, if you're testing something local to another environment, you can. So if you had a developer environment and you just wanted a local state, you wanted to just run Terraform in your code space to test things out, that is a very valid way to do things, as long as, again, you don't lose that state. And it's just best if you're in a dev environment to always destroy after you've applied.
Yeah, and so I can't spell the word and I can't even say, Derek, can you say the word for me? I can't say that word. Ephemeral. Temporary. What's ephemeral? So ephemeral. So Gitpod is ephemeral, and Codespaces is basically a virtual machine, and so it's going to persist a bit better. Could you store it in Codespaces? This is the question I'm kind of getting. Is like you probably shouldn't, but could you do a pass through? I don't know. I can't remember. But even still, you probably wouldn't want to do that anyway, and it's so easy to get set up.
Well, GitHub Action needs access to the state and has to modify it. So without that connection,
hierarchical. I can almost say hierarchical.
Hierarchical?
Derek, can you say hierarchical? Hierarchical. And English is easy. I'm learning Japanese, by the way, and I can barely speak English, which is probably a mistake. But anyway, so this is looking pretty good. So, we talked about Terraform API, and so normally when we use Terraform, we type in Terraform plan or whatever, we have the CLI tool locally, which talks to the API. But over here, right, the Terraform API, or whatever we want to call the thing, it's basically the CLI, it's basically the CLI or something, right? It's basically CLI.
Well, it's a CLI that communicates with the S3 bucket, DynamoDB, but then of course also it communicates with AWS and any other resources you're deploying.
And I'm just going to treat this as something out here, because Terraform API is imagine the what's it called, Terraform providers and modules, right? And so these things are externally hosted on Terraform, and so I'm just going to treat this as a separate thing here. And so I'll just call this yes, it's an API, but it's talking out to this stuff over here. And again, a lot of people might already know this, and they're like, "Come on, Andrew, why are you doing this?" I'm just trying to be nice for those that maybe you have expertise in something like Jenkins, and I'm just trying to fill those gaps here and be thorough. So I do apologize for those that already know, but I'm going to just cover that stuff
having good
anyway.
dialogue. Again, not a Terraform bootcamp, but I think it's causing some people who even knew this stuff to make sure that they think about these moving parts when they are building these types of things. Because you can put yourself in a corner really fast if you accidentally lose the state, and all of a sudden you can't destroy your resources. You got to go run down and click ops your way through them, or use AWS Nuke, a fun little program that's out there. I would be very wary about using that, but it's pretty cool.
Actually, that seems like a good strategy. Why don't we just use Git, right, to put our state file in?
I've literally seen people argue that online, and I just close the window every time I see it. I don't have time.
But you know what? We haven't talked about it here at all. But but Derek, what about that other Terraform thing, OpenTofu? Aren't they encrypting the state file? Does that mean it could be safe inside of a GitHub repo? Do you like OpenTofu? Have they given you any money to say good things yet, or no?
I mean, OpenTofu is open, and I actually like OpenTofu a lot. I just didn't want to confuse people right away. But if you want to use OpenTofu because you have some sort of issue with Terraform's decisions re-open source, by all means, OpenTofu is perfectly fine to use. It's basically a drop-in replacement of Terraform until now, where it started to fork out a little bit. It will still work with all of the native Terraform features, but it has added a few others. Does have the encrypted state, which is great, but basically that just saves you a step and helps make the storing in the S3 bucket a little bit easier.
And I just want to point out, like, I'm not, like, Derek is really the real expert in Terraform, and he knows OpenTofu. I'm not. I kind of play Terraform guy sometimes, and I can do things practical. So I'm going to field most of those
Halloween
questions
is
over to
coming
you.
up.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. I can pretend to be. What kind of costume could I do to pretend that I like? Is it like wear the Patagonia? What's it called? The brand. It's like Patagonia.
Yeah, the vest.
Patagonia
The
fleece.
VC fleece.
Is
yeah.
that what like a Terraform professional would wear? Like this, you know?
Oh God, I hope not.
Could I do that? It'd be fun to just dress like what's the character's name, Jared or whatever from Silicon Valley, and people are like, "What's your costume?" I'm like, can't you tell?
Love that.
Can't you tell? He's a bit of a ghost, so it kind of works. But anyway, coming back over to here, so we obviously have the Terraform CLI here. It interacts with the Terraform API. Basically goes both ways. Not that these arrows matter that much. This one technically both here. But obviously, like, we're going to have some stuff in Terraform Cloud that we want to do. What kind of, is there any, like, we don't obviously have to document everything here, but is there any, like, standout things that you really want people to learn in Terraform Cloud? Or sorry, in the Terraform code, like anything in specific?
Yeah, so there's a couple new features that I think are going to be very useful for this. And, there is actually Terra Test and there is Terraform testing out there. One of the easier things you can do, or a couple of the easier things, is use preconditions and post-conditions. This is one way to verify that maybe the AMI you're pulling from a data source is the correct format, or maybe you're in the right region. You might need to check that something's in the right region. There are a lot of different really good examples there in the documentation, especially, that you might actually find help a lot. Yep, there it is.
You know what?
There.
I don't even know about this. It must be newer, 1.9.
Yeah, it's relatively
actually,
newer.
I really don't
It's
even
not
know. Well, it says
super
1.2.
new, but it's relatively new.
Okay. Well, new for me, right? New for me. So I don't know anything about this. I don't think I do. Pre and post conditions, here we are. So I'm just curious myself. So we have a life cycle, and we have post condition, and we have, I don't see a pre one, but yeah, I imagine it's similar. So these things are two things we're going to investigate. I'm not saying I even was able to comprehend all that, but I'm going to put them in here, and I'm going to learn something new, because I'm always need to learn something new. And so those are two standout things that we're going to do. Now, I've done CI/CD pipelines, and usually they'll have steps and phases, right? And so one is just deployment. So we're going to go here. I'm going to bring this up here. I'm going to mess up my diagram. And maybe we'll bring this over here like this. And we'll bring it on down to the ground. I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger so we have a little bit more room, right? And the arrows are just going to be moving around, just dancing all day long here. And so we're going to have a deploy step. I assume that's what it's going to be called. And this is where we have that Terraform CLI doing that action for us. We'll go here and send it back. And we'll bring this here. And we'll bring that up. I think I missed a few things. Oops. Yeah, I did. I could use that grouping. I'll do that later. But we'll go bring this up here like this. And we'll bring to front. Bring to front. And we'll drag it over here. And so we have this deploy stage, right? And that's running our TF CLI. So is there any other kind of stages or steps or actions that you want us to do? Because I assume that's probably something that's a big deal for this bootcamp, is to have not just one step, but multi-steps.
Yeah, and I don't want to tell you exactly how we might expect to see this. Again, this is more focused on outcomes. So I want to make sure that you have checked the code whenever it is committed. I want to make sure that on any PR, the code has been checked for accuracy. It has been tested versus a lot of different standards. So for instance, you might run a Terraform format to check just that the code looks good. You might run a utility called tflint that will check for all sorts of fun little things. I can't even remember how much it tests for now. I will tell you that it's incredibly annoying, at least when you are first working with the code, because its default settings are going to check for like, are all of your variables have types set? Do all of your variables have default set, or maybe they shouldn't, or whatever. Like, so there are a lot of rules there that may make troubleshooting more difficult. So back when I said
Sure.
you might need to comment some things out, that's part of why you might need to do that. You might need to shut it
Sure.
up for a little bit.
So Derek, for that, like I heard TF-lint, but there could be other ones. It's just like we're just broadly defining like, hey, syntax or format, like
Yep.
sanity check for things that are not programmatic but syntax wise, and TF-lint's one of them. And you're suggesting that there could be other ones, and is that up to the boot camper to figure out like the solution? Like because you just made a generic rule, right? You just said make sure you don't have formatting issues, and that could be TF-lint or that could be something else.
Yeah,
So
I'm
is
going to
that
give suggestions.
is that what they're
I'll
supposed
give
to have, like the
suggestions and the
agency to figure
popular
it out?
suggestions. But yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. If you say, you know what, actually, I'm familiar with this platform and it works really well and it doesn't allow me to release crappy code, then by all means, use it, push it. I love that. We want you
Okay.
definitely to think
So,
outside the
and
box.
again, I just put Terraform lint there. That's not a hard requirement, as Derek just said. It's just like broad instructions. You figure out a solution. You do the research. So if you're trying to figure out formatting, assuming that's a step, you go do the research and come back and you need to put in your documentation saying why you made that technical decision, right? And it could just be as like, oh, I just wanted to try this. I heard of it. I know that TF-lint's easier, but I heard of TF dinosaur, and I wanted it. I'm not saying it exists. Or maybe you
Well, it
want to
doesn't
make your
exist
own library
anymore.
called TF dinosaur. But but anyway, if anybody wants to make, maybe you get bonus points if you make your own linting tool and you call it TF dinosaur. But you know, again, just trying to say like you have flexibility, you have agency here. So document those technical decisions so that you can back up why you did them. And
Yep.
maybe they're not good reasons. Like they're just, I just wanted to do it, but at least you told us why, right? So we have formatting. What else could be in this pipeline that you might care about?
One thing we're going to require is that you do integrate some sort of costing utility. Infra cost is by far the most popular. So we just want to make sure that when you deploy something, you don't accidentally put that like T4 18x large monster instance in there that costs, you know, like $1,000 a minute. We want to make sure that you are keeping within some sort of costing restraints. So infra cost is an example of an application you might use there. And I think it's just about one of the only really active ones right now. Now that one does have a paid plan, but you do not need to use the paid plan. So do keep that in mind. And I will also provide reference for that.
If people find solutions of things and they're uncomfortable launching because of spend, but they still want to document their exploratory of those services a possible viable solution, would you like to see that documentation just to see that they are evaluating those?
Yeah, that could be great. You can even create a conditional that maybe disables certain steps. Something like that. You can have different ways to manage that. You can say, you know, well, in this case, I didn't want to run this every time, but here it is. I mean, you can just comment it out, but I'd love to see something more elegant than just commenting it out.
I see. Let me just get this a little bit more organized here. I had another question. I have like a million questions. So hopefully, I'm trying to act as the student questions. You'll have time to ask questions in the Q&A, but I'm just trying to ask them all up front here, as many as possible.
And this
Even
is
if I
all
already know the
very
answers, I'm just
living,
gonna
like we
pretend that I
said.
don't.
This is
Yes,
a
yes,
living
yes.
document. It might change. Stuff is going to change before this thing is all over and done with.
So I really like that you talked about cost, because when you're talking about I have a friend named Irina. She's like the smartest solution architect I've ever met. She used to work at Annika. I think she's a teacher now in Toronto. I'd love to have her as a guest instructor sometime, but you know, she'd always ask three things. She'd always say security, cost, and something else. I don't know. Like, oh yeah, like how hard is it to maintain? And so right now we've just answered cost, right? And the other one I would imagine, again, I'm just guessing here, but you might want a security check. and you might want, and I don't know if this is even in the correct order. I'm just guessing, and Derek's not correcting me here because he doesn't want to start giving away answers. He wants you
Well,
to think.
TF-Lint
And the other one
actually
might
will
be
pick up some of the security stuff, but there's a lot of different facets of security. Obviously, you've got your keys. You can hard code them as GitHub secrets, but of course, that's not best practice necessarily. So OIDC is probably going to be the best way to do that. You've got security on who can actually apply something or who can deploy something. You know, maybe you want to set a guardrail on costs. So Open Policy Agent is a very powerful tool to help ensure that things are kept in line. I don't know how deep we're going to go into OPA yet because it starts to become a very, very deep subject. But, you know, so there's going to be a little bit of me giving you hints and things like that. And then it's going to be kind of up to you to decide how deep you go down that rabbit hole.
Derek, every time you say OPA, I always think of the sci-fi thriller that's on Amazon Prime, which has the OPA in it. Oh, what are they called? Sci-fi. It's a really good series. I can't remember it. Sci-fi show.
The Expanse. Oh, okay.
So in the Expanse,
what's the OPA?
Pardon?
I've never watched it. What's OPA? No.
And so.
Oh.
The OPA. So in the Expanse, because this is totally on brand here, but so in the Expanse, solar system. This is totally relevant to everything we're doing, but
we're at an hour 21 here, Andrew.
In this show, there are. I don't care. I'm going in here, but the idea is that the rest of the solar system has been colonized, and there are people living out, working on like asteroid fields and stuff like that. So people that live far away, they are the OPA, and they're belters. They work in the asteroid belt, and the OPA is basically a fringe rebellion because Earth is controlling everything, and the OPA is there to try to get their independence and get the value for them out there. So is there any kind of correlation relationship with the security thing that we're using?
Yep, actually there is. If you've never written any code in Rego, R-E-G-O, you actually might want to rebel against the nearest galaxy or solar system and possibly even blow it up, to be perfectly honest. It's not the most fun thing to work with, but I think you know, it's not bad. Once you get familiar with it and once you get like a template going, modifying it's easy. But if there's anything in this boot camp that I suggest you might want to start with AI to generate, it's probably some OPA scripts.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, also, if anyone's ever seen The Expanse, I'd love to hear it. Or, you know, if it's not Expanse, what are you watching right now? I'd love to know. So we all hang out together in the Discord. Yeah, I'll just write it in there. I'd love to read it there. And yeah, again, I'm watching the chat here, seeing the suggestions here. But so we have some steps here. Again, I don't want to keep just trying to cut up the work for people here because we want to leave it for them. I have Terra tests here, so I don't know where this goes.
This is fine. This is perfect. And again, we'll probably add some suggestions here. And you know, a lot of the time, I'm going to kind of give suggestions on like why might you go one way or the other, or why might you suggest or use this, or why might you not? You know, things like that. But again, kind of up to you because there is. Thanks, G. Voden. But the TFSec and checkoff, definitely two options you can use for more security-oriented checking of your Terraform code. And you may use one or the other. I just want to see that you've got a reason for it. Throw that in the README.
And people are talking about Shogun, and actually that's something that I watched recently. There's a new one, and I heard the 1980s one is just as good. I want to go back and watch it. For those who don't know, I'm learning Japanese, and so one of the reasons I was really motivated was because I watched Shogun and Tokyo Vice, and I was like, I could learn this language, and it's the hardest language to learn. It is easier than it's harder than all of the cloud knowledge combined and AI ML stuff. I don't know why I decided to learn Japanese. I'm regretting it. But actually, beside me, I actually have a bunch of Japanese mangas or novels. My neighbor, she just happened to have the whole series. She got it for. I'm sorry, this is Beiko. This is
Is
Beiko's
that
wife. So
Meta,
Beiko's wife
Apple,
loves
Netflix, Google, and
Shogun.
Amazon? No, manga.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
the new initialism for the jobs
Yep.
that people want to get into. But this one, it's I don't know what it is. It's about a high school. But anyway, Beiko's wife really likes this series. There's also an anime of it, and so Beiko bought her the whole series. But what he didn't know was it was in Japanese, so she can't read any of it. But I can, kind of. I pretend that I can, and so I'm pretty excited to have that full series. But anyway, I have a friend who's been learning Japanese for 15 years, and have they learned it yet? They're like, they could say hello. It's really hard to learn. But anyway, I'm sure English is hard to learn too. It depends, what perspective you come from. So I'm just looking at this. Is there anything else? You know what? I think that looking at this, I kind of wonder. You're talking about these resources. How do we get these resources set up?
Oh God,
Like,
you're
do we
gonna make me
manually
get
create them?
you're
Is it
gonna make
automated
me
by
get in a fight with
Terraform? How do we do
somebody.
that?
Here we go. So
I
those
don't care.
resources, there's a lot of ways to do this, and I've actually started surveys on LinkedIn to see. A lot of people just like the Terraform version. Me personally, which gets me yelled at every time, I prefer just to throw it in CloudFormation. That way, it's in one place that I can get to it. But a lot of people will
I love
actually
CloudFormation.
a lot of people use Terraform. They will deploy that stuff, but then you have a local state that you have to get rid of. So they will then migrate the state to the S3 bucket that is managed by the Terraform
Why?
that
Why?
deployed the S3 bucket. I don't know. I hate it. But people will argue this
Okay,
to the
well,
death.
you know
I
what,
don't agree
Derek?
with them.
I'm, I'm gonna make it easy for you. You're gonna use CloudFormation, and then if anybody asks why you did it and it's a terrible mistake, just tell them I had to do it because Andrew Brown made me do it.
Oh, perfect.
You didn't
Because I've
want to
already
do it,
done
but
it.
you had to because there you go.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
already
great.
done, actually.
So we
I,
have
I deployed the IAM resources for the OIDC role, and I will be doing these state resources using CloudFormation because I have control over it. I know exactly where it is. It's a source of truth. And now that CloudFormation has the ability to integrate with Git, I can actually have everything in one place. So I like it.
Okay. Oh, another thing is, and maybe it matters. Maybe it doesn't, but I'm gonna put GitHub code spaces on here just because we'll just say our
Yeah.
dev environment, and this will be GitHub code spaces. Of course, anybody, whatever, like if you want to use, I'll help folks out with Gitpod. It's pretty similar, but it's not one-to-one, just so you know. But don't bug Derek about Gitpod. He'll get he loves his GitHub code spaces. Actually, I don't think you have a preference. I'm just kidding. But we'll go down here, and I'm gonna go ahead and does GitHub code spaces have a logo? Let's go find out. Oh my goodness.
I don't remember.
Let's go here. GitHub code spaces. We'll bring it on over. Yeah, they have kind of a logo.
Hey,
We'll say
look at
that's
that.
it.
That's
'Cause it has
cute.
VS Code, kind of.
Yeah, get after it. I like
Okay.
that.
I didn't think there was a logo.
And just to let everybody
Checking on the
know,
chat
because
here.
there are people who are going to fight to, they're just going to just scream to the void to use their own VS Code or whatever. You can actually connect to a code spaces instance using VS Code if you'd like to still use to keep everything remote while still having the ability to connect locally. But I will not be supporting anything outside of code spaces itself. I just quite honestly don't have the time to figure out why your weird version of Linux that you've been using for 14 years doesn't work. Sorry.
And so I'm just going to bring this on up here. And if anybody has any problems with Gitpod, I'll help you out, okay? It's not a hard thing for me. But yeah, it does get really hard with local developer environments. The hardest thing is Windows with WSL. I'd love to help you. It's just like it'll take all my time. It'll take all my time, and I will never sleep. So I've had to just decide, like, people are on Windows. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you have the ability to get to Linux
I
this
have been
easy,
trying to find.
yes, this is better.
Well, I've been trying to get like some kind of local environment, but it's like even if you use Podman or Docker desktop, those parts themselves, the moving parts of the containers, have their own problems, and there's just not one perfect solution. But anyway, I'm gonna go here, and actually, Gitpod I think has like a newer version now, and they're talking about like local development, so maybe they're making it easier to run it locally as well, which would be really cool. But we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure if they'll open source
for
it.
sure.
But I guess the thing is like when we have this GitHub Actions, how are these defined? There's some kind of like there's like a dot. You think I would know? I made a whole course on it, and I can't remember everything. It's hard, but there's like is it dot workflow folder? Is that what it is?
.github/workflows, and then you have your set of YAML files within that.
Sorry, hyphen workflows?
No, it's slash, I believe.
Hyphen, right?
It's what? No, I'm pretty sure it's 2 directories. We're gonna fight it out.
Let's go ask ChatGPT. Let's pull out the AI. I've been waiting to do this entire one here.
Could just open a repository.
Folder. So where do you put your GitHub?
I was right. It's .github/workflows.
I don't care. I'm not listening. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. Where did you put the GitHub Actions file in your GitHub repo? I made a whole course on it. I'm the GitHub Actions expert. There it is. I'm wrong. You were.
That actually, like, I had kind of a headache, and it just went away a little bit. Just like hearing you say I'm wrong, like, really made me feel bad.
That was hard. I said it though. That was hard. That was hard for me.
How do we know you didn't just use an AI avatar to say that so that you could just like back off and not say it?
I have that too, eh? You've seen that where it's like it's me, and it's the way you can tell is always the teeth. I got the jankiest teeth, so if you pay attention to the teeth, you'll notice here. And yeah, Ariana figured that out quicker here, and yeah.
How do we know
that's always
she's
the challenge here? So I think
AI.
You know what? I mean, how do we know Baco's not AI, right?
I've never seen or heard from Baco.
But anyway,
I'm pretty sure he is AI.
But we'll drag this on over here, and we'll go here. And is there anything else? I think I've dotted the I's. You don't know this, but like behind the scenes, I'm asking Derek like 1,000 questions. I won't let him go. Every question must be answered. So there's no question you can't ask that I haven't bugged him already about. But we're going to be able to do that here after in the after class Q&A. But the question is there anything else that's missing?
I could just use the escape hatch here and say, hey, we've left some stuff out and we're waiting on you to tell us. So that's, I like that little escape hatch. But yeah, there's stuff that we're going to be kind of tweaking here before you get the actual project that you'll be building. We're going to add a couple of requirements. We're going to have, security requirements. We're going to have reliability requirements, resilience requirements, those types of things that would be handed down from somebody who knows what they're looking for.
But looking at this architectural diagram, it looks like obviously the EC2 instance is really light, but the focus is really how to build out our pipeline, right? And this stuff here, which I guess that makes sense because we're doing GitOps.
Wait, we've got a comment.
Oh, what tool is best to check
Drift
and avoid?
CTL is one that we can use.
All right, you beat me to it. Yep, sorry.
Yep. Or you can just run a plan yourself on a schedule.
Anyway, I feel like we've hit it here. I'm not sure what else there is to do. But anyway, I guess the next steps. So what are we doing next week? So this week is prereq. People need to go and get set up, right? And we have some videos on that, like the bare bones stuff, but maybe people just need to start thinking about it, getting excited, and we're going to jump into the code next week.
Yeah. We'll be taking a look at we'll look at some bare bones, pipelines that don't have everything quite filled out. We're going to just kind of take a look at how this looks when it deploys and start investigating. We'll probably add a feature or two. We'll see how to research that feature using the documentation. We'll see how to possibly get around some of the weird little issues that you might encounter that require maybe the GitHub CLI within a pipeline or using Octocat as a API reference. There's a lot of different things that we're going to look at that will help you be successful at this project.
Cool. And I understood what you said, but I'm going to just rephrase it. This is a CTO trick, is that anytime anybody tells you anything, always go back and ask it again in your own words to clarify so you're on the same page. So as far as I understand, what we're doing next week, because if it's wrong, then Derek can go, no. So as far as I understand, next week we are going to set up a bare bones pipeline to get out of the way things like maybe the AWS side of it and the Terraform side of it, so that we can focus on this meaty part, which is what people like all the types of things you can do in GitOps. Is that a correct description? So you're getting out the busy work, and it's not the, you know what I mean? And that's just
the busy work's going to cover
and then
the
you'll be left
basics
to
of
figure
how
this out.
things work. Yes, we're going to give you basically, and this is very easily findable online, but we're going to go in and kind of show you how to get it deployed, what's being deployed, and kind of help you understand how the pieces are working together. And then you'll be responsible for adding the extra functionality, building it out further, and making it yours.
Cool. Okay, so I think we're done. Are we early or did we go over time? It's 2:30 my time.
We're at 1:35 right now.
So
we're actually doing pretty well.
Wow. Well, do you want to just wrap it up and we'll go into we'll go into the after class Q&A?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. So the after class Q&A. Oh yeah, wait, we need to cover. Give me the stupid screen back. Let's see. Let's pop open.
Oh sure, sorry, I'll stop.
Discord.
There you go.
Yeah, let me maximize Discord real quick, and let me make sure I'm not in a weird channel or something silly. Okay, cool. So we'll GitOps minicamp and week 1 Q&A. Okay, so all right, cool. Nothing weird is showing. Nobody has messaged me anything silly. All right, where are you at? Discord window. There we go. All right, cool. So in the Discord here, you've probably seen we've got the GitOps minicamp public. For those of you fancy people who upgraded, we've got the GitOps minicamp private. And now under the GitOps minicamp 2024 channels here, we've got our forums. This is going to be an announcements channel. Please keep an eye on that if we change anything. After class Q&A is a stage right here, so we'll hop into that and take any individual questions you have. So if you are not in the Discord, one second, let me get back to the right window.
Very valuable to be in the Discord. Very, very valuable.
If you're not in the Discord, I don't know why you paid. All right. So let me and present again, share screen. There it goes.
Oh, Shazad says he's not in the and so Derek, for those that are having issues, they can just use the public channels to, like, are they allowed to DM you direct if they didn't get into the
any technical problems, DM me correctly. It's perfectly fine. And that's MTC-Derek to get into
directly,
Discord.
Yeah. I thought you said correctly, but directly. So yeah,
I might have said
that's not
correctly.
annoying. So you want to make sure the people that paid got into those extra resources, and so you're happy to get those DMs any way you can get them, right?
Yep. So to get into the Discord, you go to courses.morethancertified.com, and that's where you enrolled for the course to begin with. Click on more, and you've got the Discord link right there. That will get you into the Discord itself. If you did pay to upgrade to the premium tier, the deploy it tier, message MTC Derek, and I will get you added.
I have a classic Casio watch. And by the way, this is inexpensive. This is like, I think I paid $35 Canadian, which, by the way, Canadian money, we don't usually get watches this inexpensive. But I love Casio watches. I was going to buy more of them because I just can't afford the fancier ones. But I like these ones. They're really reliable. So I'm glad someone noticed my watch.
Nice.
But anyway, we'll see everyone over in the after class Q&A. Yeah.
All right.
Ciao,
see you guys. Thanks. All right. Let's end the stream on YouTube while I'm talking live on this. Actually, not yet. I'm just going to stop it here. Bye, everybody.